So all these topics somehow relate to what we are going to study. Uh, okay, one more thing we can do here is, oh, let me bring out a mains question for this. Mm. In the last class, we had not discussed this question, no? Religion wala. Discuss करेंगे, then we have to discuss this again in class 12, so we will discuss that again. Give me a second. अच्छा ठीक है, I will bring out that question in some other class, we will discuss. It's a very good question based upon this. डिस्कस करेंगे, टाइम मिलेगा तो इसी क्लास में करेंगे, पहले पढ़ लेते हैं थोड़ा. So marginalized communities. Marginalized, you must know the definition. To be marginalized is to be forced to occupy the side or fringe edge and thus not be at the center of the things. When you are marginalized, you are standing at the fringe. You are not fully participating in economic, social, political life of the society of the country. जैसे कि खेल के मैदान में हो सकता है. So those who are marginalized, they experience a sense of disadvantage, powerlessness, vis-a-vis more powerful and dominant sections of the society who own land or are wealthy, better educated or politically powerful. जिनके पास जमीन है, जो वेल्दी हैं, बेटर एजुकेटेड हैं, पॉलिटिकली पावरफुल हैं, दे tend to marginalize the disadvantaged, powerless people. Marginalization can be economic, social, cultural, as well as political. This cartoon you should read. It's a good one. So, what are these marginalized communities? We will read basically SCSTs, minorities are considered as the main marginalized communities. First, let us read about who are these Adivasis or scheduled tribes. Tribals are also referred as Adivasis, but they love to call themselves as, नहीं दलित नहीं है, सॉरी, हाँ आदिवासी. एससीस कहते हैं अपने को दलित और एसटी को कहते हैं आदिवासी. So these are scheduled tribes. Why they are called scheduled? Because their name are scheduled in government documents. Government के circular notices में ये scheduled है. That's why they are scheduled tribes by the Indian government in various documents. They are official. There is an official list of tribes and they are mentioned in that list. Now, Adivasi literally means original inhabitants. There are 500 different kind of Adivasi groups in India, mainly living in these regions. Adivasi societies are most distinctive because there is often very little hierarchy among them. सबसे हमने हिस्ट्री में भी पढ़ा था कि हाउ द ट्राइबल्स आर डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द मेन कल्चर. द मेन डिस्टिंक्शन इज दैट दे डू नॉट बिलीव इन हायरार्की. वहां पे कोई कास्ट सिस्टम नहीं है. एवरीबॉडी इज इक्वल. जाति वर्ण सिस्टम नहीं है. Now, Adivasis have adopted a range of practices like Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, or इनके अपने प्रैक्टिसेस इनसे बहुत डिफरेंट भी हैं. We have discussed about, we have discussed how Adivasis influence the formation of mainstream Indian languages like Bengali. There is a intermixing of Adivasi culture or tribal culture with the mainstream culture that we see, and mainstream culture has impacted them. We will discuss about this in detail in history classes कि how both of them have interacted each other. जिनको ने पढ़ लिया है, they may be able to relate better. Adivasis and stereotyping. Now, uh, when I was teaching this in some batch a few months back, there was a video going viral from some teacher who was teaching on Unacademy platform, and he was giving some example and saying कि अरे वो आदिवासियों की तरह जिनका दिमाग कम होता है. So that shows the stereotyping. You treat Adivasis as uncultured, uncivilized, uneducated people. इनको एक से exotic, primitive और backward की तरह लोग treat करते हैं, which you must never do. So often Adivasis are blamed for their lack of advancement. They are not developed. इसके लिए उन्हीं को खुद ब्लेम किया जाता है because they are not interested in studying, or they do not want to live in the cities, or they do not want to participate in economic activities. So आदिवासीज एंड डेवलपमेंट, ये देखते हैं कि क्या है. पहले तो कि द काइंड ऑफ नॉलेज दैट आदिवासीज हैव, you cannot call that a primitive society. What is the aim of our society, that this developed society? What is your dream country? If you say ki I want you, I'm letting you free to make India as developed as you want, what are the values that you want to achieve? Probably you will say कि you want equality. सबके पास खाने पीने सोने का पैसा हो, या जितना हो सबके पास इक्वल हो. Probably this will be your first target. Your aim should be कि the women are treated fairly. The third target nowadays that everybody is saying sustainability, environment के साथ अच्छे से रहें, brotherhood, there should no dispute and everybody is coming to help each other. These are the goals that we want to strive. These are the goals for which we are doing everything that we are doing, all the laws and institutions and practices. And all these things Adivasis already have. So who is more developed is now a question on which we should reflect upon. They know the medicinal herbs, animal products better than anyone else. So while historically these people have always remained free, they have never been ruled by large states or empires. Instead, often empires heavily dependent on Adivasis for crucial access to forest resources. In fact, they were the ones who were helping the forest, the civilized people. And we have seen that how in history classes, again, we will read that there are many tribal communities who still till today do not want to work as laborer anywhere. They think of themselves as forest dwellers, the king or the people of the jungle, and they think whatever they need is will be provided by the forest. And working for anyone else is kind of selling your soul. But these free people, these proud people, are now marginalized and powerless communities. They have faced the most discrimination, not by the individuals but by the state as well. Now, what are the proofs? How can we say that these people have faced discrimination or got marginalized? Since the British time, first you will read in history that Britishers, because these people were hunter and gatherers, they were mainly doing slash and burn agriculture, jhum cultivation, burning a piece of land here and then shifting next year. And these things were not profitable for any state. They wanted settled cultivation so that they can get regular tax revenue. तो इन्होंने क्या किया? They started giving the land of these tribals to other people who could do settled agriculture, and they were forced to go deeper into the jungle. They are the people who dependent happily on forest, but when the mining started in their area, the air got their population increased, the forest get destroyed, the classes with animals increased, they were barred from their own resources. एक सबसे बड़ा जो चैलेंज इनको सहना पड़ा वो है डिस्प्लेसमेंट का. Whenever a dam is built, generally that dam is built in forest regions where Adivasis are living. Now we never think about all these things. हमारी जिंदगी में ये सब चीजें एग्जिस्ट ही नहीं करती हैं. These problems are not a concern for us, but making of one dam often leads to the migration of more than 100 villages. Lakhs of people have to leave their house. For what? So that people in the urban areas can get clean electricity. These people have to migrate, leave their houses. Now, wait a second, I will show you a very good question based upon the forced migration topic. मुझे मिल नहीं रहा है, बहुत बढ़िया एक क्वेश्चन है इस पेपर में. Then I will show you, give you some facts, you note that down, and one mains question will be prepared here. Give me a second. Woman, transgender. Urbanization. This is the question. Development-induced displacement is a recurring phenomena in India, and poor and marginalized are hit the hardest by it. Okay, first, development-induced displacement. What are these development-induced displacement? इस क्वेश्चन को कैसे अप्रोच करेंगे समझो, थोड़ा सा मेंस आंसर राइटिंग भी समझा देता हूँ आज. Now this question has how many parts? First, development-induced displacement is a recurring phenomena, and because of that, poor and marginalized are hit hardest by it, and you have to examine this statement. First thing that we have to do in this is to prove or to describe that why displacement-induced this development-induced development is a recurring phenomena. And in the second part, we have to identify the issue faced by the marginalized who are hit by it. तो पहले तो समझो कि डेवलपमेंट इंड्यूस्ड डिस्प्लेसमेंट क्या है. As I told you कि somebody is making a dam and because of that people have to migrate, or a railway project is made, or a stadium is being built. So development-induced displacement occurs when people are forced to leave their homes because of the developmental constructions. It is a form of forced migration. Nobody wants to leave his or her house. Now you may say कि sir ये तो किसी के भी साथ हो सकता है. Like if today government decides to make a road somewhere, people around it will have to migrate, or government plans to make a aerodrome or a stadium, people have to migrate, right? All these things are development induced displacements, and anybody can be a victim of it. But the problem in our country or in any country is that the proportion of tribals who are displaced by this is very very high. देखते हैं कैसे. So क्या क्या रीजन है डेवलपमेंट इंड्यूस्ड डिस्प्लेसमेंट होने के. पहला तो मेन रीजन कंस्ट्रक्शन ऑफ डैम. In our country only, this has led to 6.4 million people being displaced because of hydroelectricity projects. हीराकुंड डैम में 1.1 लाख पीपल, बागरी डैम में 160 विलेजेस, सरदार सरोवर प्रोजेक्ट में 14,000 families were displaced. Mining, because of mining, the second reason, because of mining, 2.2 billion people are displaced. About 1.46 lakh hectare forest land is being diverted for mining in our country. The third reason is industrial development, and it has caused 1.25 billion displacements. So industrial development क्या है, कहीं SEZ बन रहा है या industrial park बन रहा है. These can be the reasons. Wildlife sanctuaries, one of the main reason, one of the other very important reasons we will read in this chapter. Wildlife sanctuaries, 104 national parks हैं, and when these national parks are acquired, these tribals are evicted from these regions. So because of that, about 6 lakh people are displaced. Now, why this displacement is a big issue? You may be thinking कि अच्छा इधर से displace किया, कहीं और बसा देंगे, और government will pay money, government will give equal amount of land somewhere else, and the issue is sorted, right? But let's analyze what happens when someone is forced to migrate. Impact on the poor and marginalized. According to a high-level committee on status of tribals headed by Professor Zaksa, you can remember the name Zaksa, Professor Zaksa. He was head of this high-level committee which was formed to report on the status of tribals. He said that in our country, 40% of all the people displaced are tribals. Suppose the tribals who are only 17% of the population. When it comes to displacement, they make more than 40% of the number. And of these 40%, only 21% of the displaced has been resettled. And most of them has not been rehabilitated. Though term hai that you should be able to differentiate between resettled and rehabilitated. Resettlement का मतलब है कि I have taken one acre of land from here, and I'm willing to give you 1 acre of land somewhere else, or I'm even not 1 acre of land, I'm willing to give you a house somewhere else. At least you have a house here, you will get a house somewhere else. So ये है बस resettlement. Rehabilitated का मतलब क्या है? Government ensures livelihood as well. Government ensures education and everything. Like whatever they have missed there, everything is taken care of here. And rehabilitation तो होता ही नहीं है. But by law, हमने जो ओलिगा टेलिस लॉ पढ़ा, on that judgment padha, by that judgment only Supreme Court has said कि whenever anyone is forced to migrate or displaced from where they are living, even if they are living on an illegal encroached area, first you need to rehabilitate them, and first you the provisions for rehabilitation, and then you force them to migrate. Then Jaksa committee is also saying that laws and rules that provide protection to these people are routinely manipulated and subverted. We will see UPSC asked this year Forest Act 2006. ऐसे बहुत सारे और भी rules हैं, and these rules are routinely changed or they are not implemented. Sometimes some criteria will come, sometimes other criteria will emerge, and they lose their right claim over the lands. Now, of this, women become one of the largest victims. Women are disproportionately affected by the displacement. First thing, what happens that they become more dependent on their husbands. देखो क्वेश्चन क्या कह रहा है, फिर से जाओ. Why we are talking about women here specifically? Poor and marginalized. Now, in this marginalized, it's not just about tribals. Women are also very important criteria category of people who are marginalized, who do not get their effective say in social, political, economic institutions. So whenever forced migration happens, women tend to lose more than others, because when they have a right over property, when they are settled somewhere, when they have their relatives and all, when she's aware about the reason, she feels more empowered. But when they migrate to a new territory, she became more dependent on their husbands, or they become more dependent on their husbands, because now they have to start from scratch. They do not have any job. They probably are not getting any wages and all. They're forced into labor market in the absence of rehabilitation. If rehabilitation में नहीं मिला, तो इनको कुछ ना कुछ जबरदस्ती का डेली मजदूरी लेबर मार्केट में, without even their will, they have to go. Trafficking and sexual exploitation becomes common. Now, forced migration का देखो, मैंने एक यहाँ पे डायग्राम बना के समझाने की कोशिश की कि what are the angles related to forced migration. फर्स्ट इज कि जॉबलेसनेस होगा, होमलेसनेस होगा, फूड इनसिक्योरिटी होगी, इंक्रीज मॉर्बिडिटी एंड मोरालिटी, मोर्टेलिटी होना चाहिए, मोर पीपल विल डाई, लॉस ऑफ एक्सेस टू कॉमन प्रॉपर्टी. नाउ अभी व्हेन पीपल आर लिविंग इन अ विलेज, and village you do not have just your houses, people also have common property like ground where animals can feed. They have playing grounds and all sort of other things, common property in village. But when a people from a village area is forced to migrate to some urban area or somewhere where they do not have the access to such free open spaces, they lose their common property. And then landlessness. दूसरी जगह करके गवर्नमेंट उनको 5 लाख रुपए दे ही दे, but they're not getting the land back, and land is a very important resource to have. I'm not discussing legal provisions as of now, but I hope you understand how these people are marginalized. Now, marginalization क्या होता है कि finally they lose their tradition and customs, they lose their way of living. आप माइग्रेट कर देते हो तो दूसरे रीजन पे जाके दे हैव टू लर्न न्यू लैंग्वेजेस, दे हैव टू लर्न अ न्यू वे ऑफ लिविंग. नाउ माइनॉरिटीज एंड मार्जिनलाइजेशन, दिस इज अ वेरी hotly debated topic in our country. The term minority is mostly commonly used to refer to the communities that are numerically small in relation to the rest of the population. Now in India, we have Hindus about 80%, and rest of all the communities are considered as minorities. Now, our constitution has given safeguard to religious and linguistic minorities. We will read about these provisions in 11th class. Now, minority क्या क्या कह रहा है कि ये सिर्फ नंबर पे बेस नहीं है. दिस कॉन्सेप्ट गोज वेल बियॉन्ड द नंबर्स. इट इनकम्पासेस इश्यूज ऑफ पावर, एक्सेस टू रिसोर्सेज एंड हैज सोशल एंड कल्चरल डायमेंशंस. क्या देखते हैं हम कि we need to provide some safeguards to protect the minority communities against the possibility of culturally dominated by majority. हमने जो देखा था tyranny of majority. To protect them against that, we need some safeguards, otherwise they will lose their culture. Now, how marginalized Muslims are in India? There was a committee which made a lot of news headlines in our country. The committee reported upon the status of Muslims in our country, the socio-economic status, the educational status of Muslims. Such a committee. I don't know how many of you have read the name or heard the name. The committee find out that the status of Muslims in India is even worse than some of the scheduled castes. जैसे कि यहाँ देखते हैं रिलीजियस कम्युनिटी के हिसाब से हिंदू, मुस्लिम, क्रिश्चियन एंड सिख्स. सो विल सी Muslims has least number of pakka houses, they have least access to electricity, and they have least access to tap water. This is a report of Indian Human Development Report 2011. So you will find that Muslims are lacking behind in almost all the parameters. Literacy rate mein they are one of the worst. Public employment in Muslims में भी ये बहुत पीछे हैं. Population is about 13%, but nowhere they are getting their fair access. Now, recently there was a channel which got a lot of traction with this idea of IAS or UPSC jihad, that Muslim people are getting more and more access to civil services. You see, for any fair distribution, if everything would have been fair, just by probability, 13% Muslims should have access to all the services. थोड़ा कम हो सकता है, 10% हो जाए, like it's in state PSUs. But the representation is way less in public employment. राजेंद्र सच्चर ने कमेटी हाई लेवल कमेटी 2005 ने रिपोर्ट दिया that Muslim community is comparable to that of the other marginalized communities like scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Now, हमें सबसे प्रॉब्लम क्या है? The Muslim customs and practices are sometimes quite distinct from that what is seen as the mainstream. And because this perceived distinction of the Muslim customs, they face a differentiation or discrimination. Because by the very nature we are like that, we do not want differences make us afraid. We want commonness. अपने जैसा सब है तो अच्छा है. For us, a few things that they do is very like कैसे कर लेते हैं ऐसा, and for them something that we do is like ये कैसे कर लेते हैं. Because we are humans, we understand the things that we do. Wearing burqa is like for us, for Hindus, it's like बाप रे इतनी गर्मी कैसे बर्दाश्त कर लेते हैं. और जो करते हैं उनको लिए ठीक है वो। गेटवाइजेशन ऑफ द कम्युनिटी ये एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है, एंड on this every country needs to work, and on this some of the educated Muslims should also take step. But you should know ghettoization means people of same caste, community, religion living in same area. So you have seen in any place Muslims tend to live in same area, and it becomes a ghetto or ghettoization. And it's not just in India, it's same in New York City, it's same in London, and it's same everywhere else. Because of this, across culture, take give and take doesn't happen, and it creates a feeling of suspense. It creates a feeling of insecurity. पता नहीं कहाँ क्या हो रहा हो उधर, पता नहीं है अपने को. When you go, when you meet, when you talk to the people, you come to understand that they are just like me. There's like nothing different. But because of this ghettoization of people, nowadays in India, we will read in Indian society, sociology में पढ़ते हैं, we see that ghettoization is now, when people talk about कि now casteism is dying in India, actually ghettoization of caste communities have started. Now you will find that in a community only SC, STs are living, in a community only general or a particular caste is living, and people have now started living more and more in their preferred caste groups. Effectively, people try to stop the buying and selling of property to the other caste people. तो ये सब challenges हैं सबके लिए. Now in India there are several other marginalized communities like Dalits. We will read about them in the next chapter. What are the ill effects of marginalization? Marginalization is having a low social status and not having equal access to education and other resources. Just because you belong to a certain group, you have a low social status. Marginalized communities want to maintain their cultural distinctiveness while having access to right development and other opportunity. देखो एक solution ये है कि you do not, like Muslims, have the distinct features, distinct practices. One solution can be कि you become like everyone else. You leave your distinctiveness, and then you will not be discriminated. But no marginalized community will ever want this. You as a person will never want this. If I will tell you like you like to have big hair, and I will tell you cut your hair and then I will be your friend, probably you will not do that until unless you really love me. So nobody want to leave their cultural distinctiveness. यहाँ पे कुछ और डेटा है about education and all, you should read. This is the end of this chapter. थोड़ा और अच्छे से जाके पढ़ना है इसको. You will get a lot more clarity. Now this chapter is about Dalits and their marginalization. हमने काफी कुछ इसमें पढ़ भी लिया है. यहाँ काफी we have read some data as well. One thing that we need to discuss is Prevention of Atrocities Act. I don't know how many of you have heard this name. किसने सुना है SC/ST Act, Prevention of Atrocities? People coming from Maharashtra and all. It's a very big issue in Maharashtra, even in MP as well. Big protest happened in Gwalior a few years back because of this. थी वैसे तुम सब वहां? So basically what happens, you must have come across many news. Actually this was recently also in news that one guy was thrashed, his house was broken or attacked just because he rode a horse on his wedding, which is considered as something that upper caste people do. Sometime it has happened that lower caste people have been beaten for having mustaches, and this practice was very common, suppressing the scheduled tribe and scheduled caste. So a law was made to prevent these people, prevention of atrocities against scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. So many provisions has been made under this. Some of them are like act. Firstly, list the mode of humiliations. ये कैसे कैसे इनको humiliate कर सकते हैं, like they forces a member of the scheduled tribe to eat or drink any inedible or obnoxious substance, forcibly remove the clothes of the person of a member of a scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. तो इस तरीके के practices को बैन करता है ये law. The actions that disposes Dalit Adivasis of their mere resources. ऐसे they used to capture their land, their houses, their animals. So उनको भी बैन करता है. वुमेन्स के अगेंस्ट, ट्राइबल वुमेन्स के अगेंस्ट कोई अगर क्राइम हो रहा है, देयर इज अ स्पेशल कॉग्निशन फॉर दिस. Finally, there is the issue of manual scavenging, and this is one thing which is still standing at a big question on India's progress. Manual scavenging is, you can see the picture. Manual means by hand, mechanical. So manually cleaning the filth. If you have heard from your parents and all, like, or even if you have ever reflected back, the safety toilets that we use, these were not always in place. So 50 years back or 100 years back, how people used to go to toilets and all, I don't know how many of you have seen, but in my house I have seen they used to have a place where people will go and do their dirty business, and there will be a drum or something, and somebody was designated to carry that thing and every day throw it out. Somebody else excreta, waste, was thrown away by someone else every day by carrying on his head the most degrading thing. So these kind of acts, and who is doing this? There's just one particular community in India who is supposed to do this. Nobody else is doing this. This That's why this is so humiliating, and that's why this is so revealing also. तो इंडिया में अभी मैनुअल स्कैवेंजिंग पे पूरी तरीके से बैन लग चुका है. But still you will be seeing, when in news always news come that 3 people died while doing manual scavenging. It is completely banned. People in municipalities, you might have seen pictures of people directly going into the sewers trying to clean them. All those things are banned, but still exist. So एक ही अच्छा लाइन है, सीके जानू कहते हैं कि government itself is a major violator of the constitutional right of the tribal people. Government itself allows all these timber merchant, paper mills, encroachers to infiltrate, encroach on their tribal property, and it is held by helped by the government तो दिस इज द एंड ऑफ दिस. एक बार पढ़ना, बहुत सारे अच्छे अच्छे वर्ड हैं इसमें. असर्टिव, कन्फ्रंट, डिस्पोज्ड, ऑस्ट्रेसाइज्ड, morally reprehensible, policy. In some words को you try to make bring all these terms in your day to day vocabulary, in your writings. और तो बस इतना ही है आज. अब 9th क्लास स्टार्ट करेंगे कल. चलो. हाँ प्रियंका बताओ.
Sir, what was the act that you are mentioned in the Manual Scavengers Act, sir? Prevention of Prohibition of Employment?
No, act ही है.
2013 or 3?
Yeah, prohibition of employment as manual scavengers and their rehabilitation act.
Sir, this act was, put forth by the government
Yes.
from Andhra Pradesh, sir.
No, it's an all India act made by government of India. In 2013 again it was. Bolo.
Sir, rehabilitation means what kind of work they will give for the manual scavengers apart from this manual scavenging?
Rehabilitation they can be given some skills like being carpenter or any such skill, electrician, education. जो skill वो सीख के कुछ भी काम कर सके, they can earn their own livelihood.
Sir, one doubt, sir. Actually, I have seen people like not able to learn such new skills, and they were hesitating to new. Uh, learn the new work. So, um, so what was the possible measure we can take for like those people?
For those people, acha, I will discuss a question. I have a good question on that. Let's wait. For those people, they can be given loans by the government to start some business. They can be sent to school again, re-educating them, sensitizing. If nothing else, they can be given a pension to survive upon. लाइक जैसे वृद्धा पेंशन मिलता है तो उनको उतना तो दे सकती है गवर्नमेंट टू सर्वाइव.
अच्छा.
एनीथिंग एल्स?
No, sir.
एनीवन? कल आके 9th स्टार्ट करेंगे. थोड़ा आप तेज करेंगे क्लास, काफी स्लो हो गया है. हाँ देखो एक क्वेश्चन मिल गया, अच्छा क्वेश्चन है. ऑनर 5 बताओ. अनम्यूट योरसेल्फ. व्हाट्स योर नेम?
So my name is Rajeshwari.
हाय राजेश्वरी.
Hello, sir. Sir, I want to know these particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Why the government differentiate these groups in the simple tribal groups?
Particularly vulnerable groups, as the name suggests, they're more vulnerable, particularly vulnerable. We know that they are vulnerable. Their number is declining. There is a certain criteria that government has fixed.
But sir, all the recently we have studied that all the tribal groups are vulnerable.
No, all are not equally vulnerable.
Okay.
There are some tribal groups which are actually dominant in some areas now. They have gained some political status. They have some leaders. Like if you go to Jharkhand, Munda, Urao, Santhals, they have gained considerable amount of political might now.
Okay.
So not everyone is equally vulnerable.
Okay.
So this is a question. Despite the achievement of National Commission of Safai Karamcharis towards ameliorating the condition of manual scavengers in India, what other steps can be taken in this direction? नेशनल कमीशन, गवर्नमेंट ने एक अलग से कमीशन बनाया है सफाई कर्मचारी के लिए, एंड इन स्पाइट ऑफ वट एवर दे आर डूइंग, manual scavenging is still happening. So what other steps can be taken? I'm not going to discuss all this, but as someone said कि what more can be done, so let's see what more can be done. पहले तो क्या क्या कर रही है देखो, एंड National Commission for Safai Karamcharis is already giving micro credit finance or general term loan to these people to start some businesses and all. महिला समृद्धि योजना चल रहा है, where these women from these communities are given rebate in interest, एजुकेशन लोन और प्री मैट्रिक लोन भी मिल रहा है, प्री मैट्रिक स्कॉलरशिप मिल रहा है, स्वच्छता उद्यमी योजना है, सेल्फ एम्प्लॉयमेंट स्कीम्स गवर्नमेंट चला रही है, health camps, and even when they are doing so they are provided protective gear. Now somebody need to clean those things, but वो manual नहीं होके safe बनाया जा सकता है, उसको mechanized बनाया जा सकता है. Like nowadays you must have seen, if you travel on railways, you have seen people cleaning railways now. They have all these latest gadgets and all, they do not touch anything with hand. So cleaning हो रहा है, but now it's not manual scavenging. स्किल डेवलपमेंट एंड ट्रेनिंग किया जा सकता है, ये कर हो रहा है ऑलरेडी, जहाँ पे स्टाइपेंड एंड ट्रेनिंग दिया जाता है. अदर क्या कर सकते हैं? अडॉप्टिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज, लाइक इन हैदराबाद मेट्रोपॉलिटन वाटर सप्लाई एंड सीवेज बोर्ड ने क्या किया कि इन्होंने जेटी मशीन्स निकाली. अब वो सीवेज में कोई जाएगा नहीं, छोटे छोटे मशीन्स हैं, जेटी मशीन्स विच विल गो इनटू द सीवेज एंड क्लीन इट. सिमिलरली स्पाइडर सेप्ट बैंडिकूट रोबोट बनाया केरला ने होल्स एंड सीवर्स को साफ करने के लिए. प्रॉपर अवेयरनेस एंड सेंसिटाइजेशन ऑफ अथॉरिटीज, देखो सेंसिटाइजेशन अथॉरिटीज को भी ये वार्न करना चाहिए. द इन द म्युनिसिपैलिटीज पीपल हायर दीज पीपल इफ व्हेनेवर देयर इज अ क्लॉगिंग, so they must be sensitized कि if you are hiring a manual scavenger you can be fired or action can be taken against you. ये जो एक्ट है प्रिवेंशन ऑफ मैनुअल स्कैवेंजिंग, इसका ठीक से इम्प्लीमेंटेशन हो और इनको भी रिहैबिलिटेशन मिले. मोस्ट ऑफ दीज पीपल आर नॉट रिहैबिलिटेटेड येट एज वेल. पॉलिसीज को रिफॉर्म किया जाए और प्रोटोकॉल्स को सही सही बताया जाए कि व्हाट इज मैनुअल स्कैवेंजिंग एंड व्हाट इज नॉट. एनजीओज को स्ट्रेंथन करना चाहिए, बिकॉज एनजीओज दे आर वर्किंग विद दिस ग्रुप डायरेक्टली एंड दे नो बेटर. तो कुछ एनजीओज हैं लाइक सफाई कर्मचारी आंदोलन और राष्ट्रीय ग्रामीण अभियान. समझ में आया व्हाट कैन बी डन? हाँ प्रियंका.
Sir, how to remember those acts and NGOs names or else companies names who are taking part in these social activities and all while writing my mains answer writing?
स्लोली होगा, इसके लिए नोट्स बनाना पड़ता है टॉपिक वाइज, खास करके सोसाइटी वाले इश्यूज में यू हैव टू प्रिपेयर टॉपिक वाइज नोट्स. You should, by the time you go to exam you will make 1 page notes, 1 page women के लिए, 1 page tribals के लिए, half-page शेड्यूल कास्ट के लिए. ऐसा नोट्स, स्कीम्स, डेटा, फैक्ट रखना पड़ता है, रट्टा मारना पड़ता है और कोई ऑप्शन नहीं है. चलो ठीक है, कल मिलते हैं. कल वी विल स्टार्ट क्लास 9th पॉलिटी. I'm ending this class. सरस्वती पूजा मनाओ आज, जल्दी थोड़ा छुट्टी करता हूँ. बाय. बाय. अरे नहीं जाना क्या तुम लोगों को?